purpose of this video is to give you a bit of an insight into the skills and understandings required for the close reading section of the literature course. Now let's begin with the purpose of what we're on about here. We're talking about these 4 skills for the close reading section. Readings of text, which is about your ability to develop an insight, to be able to see through a text in order to be able to discern some meaning from the text. We're going to look at how you are able to use evidence to support your reading and your interpretation of the text. Your use of literary concepts and terms in the application and use of that evidence, and also your expression of ideas, your ability to look at to bring all these 3 things together in a clear, coherent way. So let's start by thinking about who the enemy is here. Your enemy is the examiner. But the examiner actually wants you to see through the text. This exam isn't designed to trip you up. So the text that is chosen is designed for you to be able to derive an interpretation from it. So when you get an unseen text, take a step back from it, read it, and think, overall, what is this text really on about? Because there's always at least one driving idea. There's always some interesting choices in language, and the end point of the text is chosen because it allows the text to be read as a whole. And that last point is very important because particularly in drama or prose, that you were taking stuff from a novel here, that the end point for the sample, for the extract that you're given, allows you to read it as a contained whole. And so if you bring these ideas together, that the examiner wants you to see through the text, then that there's always a driving idea. It allows you to relax and just to see what's going on there. So in producing a reading, keep in mind what a reading is. A reading is simply an interpretation. Another way of thinking about that is that a text is encouraging you to have a conversation about it. So when producing a text, you might interpret the text as a representation of a social group or event, a representation of a relationship or idea, or an example of its genre. Those 3 things, there are other things that texts do, but those 3 things can kind of be applied to pretty much any close reading that you get. Now, when using evidence, consider this. Consider that the great evidence lends itself to analysis of language. It's not, a lot of students approach this idea of evidence in their exams kind of like an interrogation, trying to beat a confession out of the text, or a legal argument where they're trying to prove that something is true. Evidence is part of that analysis, part of the conversation you're having with the text, and it's woven into the syntax. So this isn't just about the choice of evidence, but the use of it. In the marking key, there are marks awarded for appropriate choice of evidence and good quality choice of evidence, but most of all, it's about the use of evidence. And this use is about the critical use that gives clear attention to the effect of the evidence that you are looking at. And that's why choosing evidence where the language is useful, where the language is important, allows you to do that kind of analysis really well. So in class, throughout your whole year, use every opportunity to gain knowledge and comfort with terminology. You don't want to go into exams with simply a dictionary understanding of what a metaphor or a simile is, but an understanding of why metaphors are a thing. Who cares about metaphors? Why would authors use them? If you can understand metaphors and language devices as a thing, as something that is used to manipulate an audience in interesting ways, then you'll be more comfortable writing about it. But we're not just talking here about language devices. We're talking about cultural concepts also, such as gender, marginalization, class, and a whole bunch of others. And one of the things I've noticed from my reading over years, particularly with regard to gender, is a lot of students will make simplistic statements about gender, such as women are treated as second-class citizens, or women are dominated by men. These are really simplistic statements that often cause you to overlook the nuances in a text. That gender isn't simply about a one-way power structure or anything like that. It's about the struggle with expectations of conforming to gender roles. if you get more of a nuanced understanding of that, you'll be able to write about it more fluently. And that will come from engaging in discussion in your classrooms and also asking challenging and interesting questions of your teachers. So in terms of expression of ideas, I want you to be able to develop the habit of controlled and structured argument. The only time you do a controlled and structured argument should not simply be in your assessments. It should be a habit you do in your writing and in your speech. That sophistication emerges from clarity of understanding of concepts, and that goes back to my previous point. And you should start, though, by knowing how to control sentences. This one point is enormous for the improvement in the quality of responses. If you can understand what a simple sentence is, what a compound sentence is, and what a complex sentence is, you are then empowered to structure ideas in really sophisticated ways. And it's not simply to be able to write long, complicated sentences. Not at all. It's about being able to make selections of how you write to persuade your audience of the argument you're making about the text. So for me, grammar is not simply about a set of rules that I learned in year 5. Grammar is about organizing language in ways that is persuasive and controls the flow of ideas to my reader. And so if you can understand a simple sentence, a complex sentence, and a compound sentence, you are on your way to really being able to formulate strong arguments. So here's a bit of an example I've developed. This is in the context of our class's study of the outsider. Mousseau's detachment from the social world is in stark contrast with the response to the natural world, and this is clearly revealed through its impact in the lead up to his murder of the Arab on the beach. That's a compound sentence. While the impact of the sun is central to the passage, it is the imagery of the sea that is particularly interesting. That's a complex sentence. As he walks back to the beach, he observes the way the sea, gasping for breath, sent rapid little waves to wash over the sand. See how the evidence is woven into the sentence there. As the scene rises in its tension, the peaceful sea gives way to its personification as it heaved a heavy, scorching sigh. This personification seems to place the natural world as a balance struck between the scorching sun and the relief of the sea. This leads us to wonder whether Mousseau is simply sensitive to the movements of nature or whether he is himself a force of nature. Now, to be honest, I would rewrite this paragraph again, but it doesn't matter. The point here is look at the use of complex and compound sentences, look at the way the evidence is woven into the sentence structure, and look at how terminology is woven into my analysis here. Those three things make for a good quality, competent response. And in the literature exam, getting high scores is very achievable for most literature students simply by weaving in good quality evidence and an engagement at a personal level with the text. So if there's a single takeaway from this, it is that close reading is about a set of skills and understandings that can be revised and practiced. They can be revised and they can be practiced. The close reading section can be revised through the practice of looking at unseen texts, identifying some meanings, and being able to weave in some evidence into some interpretations. So good luck in your work with this, and I hope this has been helpful for your exams.